Your house has become an electromagnetic nightmare. That radiation goes through you. When your head is pressurized with voltage in the air that's all around you and it's pressurizing your brain.
What if I told you that the very thing that you think will protect you from EMFs could cause your heart to stop?
Your heart is an electrical beauty. You have a voltage crisis. And they feel these little flutters.
Meet Eric, a synthetic biology researcher at the forefront of exposing the assaults on our people. Now with revolutionary info regarding electrosensitivity and our homes.
Your house is literally a vacuum for unwanted energies.
In addition to being an exemplary paramedic and ER medic for over 2 decades, Eric spent almost a decade on an advanced digital communications team.
There was only 3 in all of the United States. 3 regional mobile asset teams. So we made the 3rd one, which means we could respond anywhere in the United States. So we had to go through a pretty intense credentialing process. Communication technician, communication leader. If we went into an area where they had no communications because of storms or whatever, we have to go out and build out antennas. We have to build our own infrastructure, putting up antennas, building up a 800 system, building out a VHF system, and hanging the repeaters up because you're a regional mobile asset team. Being on that team has allowed me to understand things that people have no clue what's going on in their whole entire community about what the BLE, the Bluetooth, is really doing and the different connections that are happening when you don't even know it.
So today you will learn the truth about your home being an electrical antenna.
Our house is a powerful antenna. Her girlfriend calls her. That call is going to go through your house too. Laws of attraction.
We will learn how your environment is electrically terrorizing you and why the solution is not shielding.
Or your chair backed up to a socket or a light switch. Everybody wants to go for the shielded, and some people will never ever put the pieces of the puzzle together. You're having a field pulse behind you. Whether it's on or off, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
The health effects of your home's electromagnetism on you.
Something has happened inside the brain where it did not get oxygen. And it starts off with the brain fog. You have all this information flooding your heart, hitting your heart. Why is my heart skipping around? Why did it just skip a beat? Do you feel run down? Yeah, I feel run down.
And the solution we all need to focus on.
You want it to be able to only want to go that way, not reflect. And if we do our house right, your house literally could be a Faraday cage if you had the adequate.
Now this information may really challenge you, but once you start deepening your understanding, the information revealed here will actually start to make a lot of sense. But before we talk with Eric, you should know that his methodology revealed here has already been implemented by numerous people with incredible positive results immediately.
Get your home right so it doesn't assault you.
So Eric, you talk about the house being an antenna. Could you explain why that is and some of the explanation behind that?
Yeah, like we said in our last podcast, I said I think visuals will help. It's hard for people to really see what their house really looks like because why? We have walls, we have paint, wallpaper, curtains, and all that good stuff. So if we really want to think about what our house can potentially look like, that's what it really looks like in its veins and arteries, if you will. If you go look up in your attic, you have tons of wires, and this could be theoretically kind of like an over exaggerated representation of it. However, you have the wires that are fixed down your walls to your sockets. You know, they're symmetrical in nature. What you also have is you have all the zigzag patterns that's up in your attics, that's underneath your house. It's exaggerated, but not, because you have all kinds of energized antenna quality materials in your home. And that's before you start plugging things up. And so then we start plugging things up. Now we have fields, powerful fields in our home that's pulsing. Now the power doesn't just run all around your house. It's already there. It's there. And it's always pulsing. So you'll always get this effect. And that alone by itself is affecting people inherently. Like if you got your back or your chair backed up to a socket or a light switch or whatever. And some people will never, ever put the pieces of the puzzle together, that you're having a field pulse behind you. because it's always whether it's on or off, it doesn't matter. It's always pulsing there. And some people were like, well, we'll turn the power off in this room when we go to sleep. If the rest of your house is energized, you're still having this energy that's all around you, still jumping off those lines. There's nothing about the antenna quality of those wires have changed,
Mm.
you know, especially if you don't have what we were trying to really drive home lately is the grounding part of it. So if your ground isn't adequate, you could easily have reflected energies coming back up into your home. Just because you have the power turned off in your bedroom, that does not necessarily mean there aren't unwanted energies riding along, riding along this, riding along this. This is your house. This is what your house looks like. This is what everybody's house looks like. It's a powered antenna. And because the ground isn't functioning or operating adequately, it's not pulling, it mostly reflects. So all the so-called dumping of power, right? It doesn't dump, it dumps and reflects back into our home. So these are just the things that we need to understand, and we've kind of been talking about that. These things can affect our heart. I'm starting to look at that there could be a correlation between a lot of these energies and how we are mostly the ground for a lot of these different energies. It's attaching to us, grounding to us. Your cell phone has multiple antennas in it. So we're looking at wireless for your Wi-Fi. We're looking at an LTE or broadband for your internet and all that. And you're looking at a cellular network, voice call, your cellular network, your voice call. And you're also looking at a Bluetooth mechanism. So those are like 4 modulating technologies coming off of that one device.
Mm.
So 4 different fields. Now that battery is also generating a whole other field by itself. And when that battery gets down to a certain percentage, it starts to drain down. It's so-called grounded to the case of the phone. But it's already been well known that once it gets down to a certain percentage, the ground now jumps off and jumps onto you. So now you are the ground for that phone 100%.
Mm.
And so even when the ground is operating appropriately in that phone, you're still broadcasting off of it. You're still broadcasting electromagnetic fields that come off of that. And these things cause interference. This interference or rubbing, there's lots of rubbing taking place all around you,
Mm.
which is what? Is friction, radiation, voltage, wattage. This part is what is heating us up. This heat is radiation. Radiation is heat. Radiation is voltage. Radiation is wattage. Radiation is frequency. It's all of these things because all these things have thermal properties to it. Thermal heating, regardless of the mechanism, what's EMFs, it's EMRs, it's EMIs, does not matter. It's ionized, it's non ionized, does not matter. The byproduct of creating man made electricity, man made frequencies, man made Bluetooth, it does whatever you want to, how you ever want to categorize it, it's causing thermal heating, not global, thermal heating in your biology. It's heating us up.
Mm.
And this is the number one mechanism of the assault that people will not let go of the mechanism, which is this addictive tool that's your demise. It's draining you, it's heating you up, it's desiccating your blood, drying you out. This is well known. And your house is a part of that. Your house is a part of that. It's all what, like how the Joker said in the Batman movie. It's all a part of the plan, but it doesn't feel like a plan to you because it's just normal living. It's society. This is how we operate. This is in the fire department. We have a term where somebody says, well, this is just the way we've always done it. We got to get out of that mindset. We got to learn how to fix what is broken and not assume everything is operating the way it's supposed to. Like, because we could just go over to our lamp, it turns on, it's fine. I go to open the refrigerator light turns on, it's fine. Like your house has maintenance. And of course, the majority of people, what they do is they look at their house maintenance, raking the yard, maybe painting the house. But there's a lot of little things in your home that are making an extraordinary amount of noises that you don't hear yet. Most likely, you don't hear them yet. When you have a house that's chaotic, again, you may not know it yet, and I know a lot of people don't like it. These type of things like this, especially this one, is a good way to find out what at minimum is creating a broadcast that you don't want. There are lots of little things in your home that broadcast that are creating the friction in the wattage and the voltage that can lead to voltage crises with our biology, whether it be an arrhythmia or shortness of breath. All these little things add up, and I'm all about awareness and taking care of the little things. Little things are the easiest things to do.
So I'd like to just quickly circle back to a point you mentioned earlier, which was about the phone case acting as a ground for the frequency that the battery or the phone battery gives off. So you mentioned that that phone case as acting as the ground can then become saturated and jump off the case. So how does that happen? Why does that happen? If this is the concept of a ground is like an infinite sink of energy, then why is that overflowing?
Poor design. When it's fully charged, for some reason or another, these batteries and these phones can easily hold the ground. But when it discharges and the battery percentage decreases, for some reason that ground is no longer able to hold that particular field that the battery itself is putting off. So that field from that battery starts to jump onto you and you become the ground. So you're already taking an assault from the antennas anyway, those modulations. Now you're bringing on more of that. So you've got this coupling effect. You're bringing more of that energy that's already a lot onto you with your phone.
So you mentioned earlier that frequency has an electrical component, which is voltage, which then generates a heat component, and heat is radiation. So is that something that is commonly understood that people know about? When we talk about all of these frequencies around us, you talk about how if all the frequencies around us, all these violent radiations were to cease, then a lot of this assault that we're faced through so many different means and aspects would actually fall.
First, about that, this is the hinge to the whole thing, because like if you remove this hinge, the door falls off and it can't open or shut, so it's done. But the radiation is the assault on us. The frequencies is the informational war that's taking place. It's the informational guidance, marching orders to a lot of different things that we don't even understand, because we're surrounded by an antenna array system that is a plug and play system. It's interoperable to beyond your imagination. Beyond anybody's imagination is this interoperability, this plug and play world that we live in, that we don't have access to the plug and play world that is actually exists all around us. And when you have to understand antennas, all of these antennas work and operate together. Whether you understand that or not, or you think I'm just pulling stuff out of my rear, and that's fine. That's fine. But again, you weren't there. You didn't see what I see. You didn't watch how hard they pushed interoperability of everything. And that is there. And it's been there for quite some time. Again, not for you and not for me. We can't make a lot of things talk and work together. Somebody can. Somebody is. Radiation is the friction, the rubbing of all of this stuff that's going on around us. And what ends up happening a lot of times, because there's a lot of amplifiers built in to a lot of these antenna arrays that we're surrounded by, even your cell phone, even your Wi-Fi router. It's just like a fire truck. They have all these different lines, all these different hoses pulled off, and they have all these, they're longer and longer and longer. We have to deal with a problem called friction loss. So once they get longer and longer and longer, we have to apply more pressure. These antennas are doing the same thing. When that friction gets so much, the friction gradient gets so high, it can't get to where it wants to the way it wants to. So what is it going to do? it's going to upregulate power. And then when it upregulates power, that's more wattage and energy and voltage in your area. Same with your Wi-Fi router. You put a whole bunch of shielding on it. You're creating a more radiological and rich environment when you put all that shielding on there, where all you have to really truly do is just go up to the GUI or the interface and hardwire that bad boy and turn those antennas off. Turn them off, those antennas off, versus shield them, because it's going to amplify. It has a built-in amplifier in it.
And what you're doing is that it has to work harder to get that frequency and that signal intact to where it needs to go. So it's just going to put more energy into the air to get that through, to get that past your shielding.
Right. Right. And your computer, so you're sitting at a laptop. You have your wireless on. Your wireless on your computer is going to up modulate to go lasso that signal to bring it in. So now you're sitting in front of your computer or whatever device you're using. Now you're getting even more of a blast sitting right there in your face, just like we're talking right now. The antenna will be right there, and it would have to upregulate or up modulate to lasso that signal, and it will do that.
So now that we've discussed that, you mentioned earlier about these odd harmonics and this effect that they're having on us and on our heart. So I want to go back a little bit, and you talk about the coupling effect. So what is that, and how are we producing these odd harmonics to begin with?
Again, because our house is an antenna, it's a charged antenna, and we're bringing in all of these different frequencies that are being coupled. Again, your neighbor comes outside, sends a text. That text is literally going right through your house because of affinity. Your neighbor sends a text. It's going to have an affinity towards your house or wherever the field is. That text is going to go right through your house.
So it's going to be attracted or pulled.
Laws of attraction, right? It's going to be attracted to your house. It's going to go right through your house. And then after she makes the text, her girlfriend calls her. That call is going to go through your house too. All these little things all day long add up. It's all friction. It's all noise. It's all radiation. It's all that friction between all these different frequencies that are just a micron of distancing between each other. They rub on each other, and everywhere they go, they're creating this heat, this thermal output. That radiation goes through you. And it's difficult to really understand why there's such a long, lingering effect of that heat in our body. You have to wonder sometimes, is there something in us that is using these energies that create these long-lasting effects, that create more radiation? So you have more rubbing and more friction in you. That rubbing and friction creates more radiation. And that's why some people, especially a lot of the people I talk to, they can just do feet soaks. They just soak their feet, and they're drawing out some of the grayest stuff you've ever seen before. Just super saturated, quick. So some people obviously have a higher affinity for these energies and this radiation, and they're super saturated beyond the pale. It's truly a freak show out here.
So it's interesting you mentioned that, especially when you've talked on Tony's podcast now a few times about how the ground needs to be more conductive to draw the energy or dissipate it. And when you think about how conductive we are becoming because of the metals and all of these materials that are being put inside of us with these properties, it's interesting, for example, to relate that to when you talked about you becoming the ground for your phone case or for the whatever your battery is giving off, because it seems like with these materials that we are becoming saturated with, that we're just being made more suitable to act as a ground and to act as something conductive.
Yeah, like a mechanism inside of electrical engineers schematic, whether it be a diode or whether it be a switch or just a node in general.
It's interesting, actually, if you want to take that a step further, then you can look at some of the organizations that talk about like turning the body into a wire or transmitting digital signals, not through a frequency, but actually electrically through the skin or underneath the skin. Okay, so I want to then ask you, because you've talked about the coupling effect and how this noise, and you were talking about, for example, a text message, a phone conversation, this electromagnetic interference can then be coupled into other circuits and can be, and you've talked about how alternating current is a carrier wave. So I think are those two connecting where you have a carrier wave that then is being exposed to noise? Is that then coupling into carrying these weird these noises that are then resulting in something that you would refer to as weird harmonics?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Your house is literally a vacuum for unwanted energies in your home. What is being coupled to your house? It's all about the time of day, what's going on around you. I've had clients tell me that they're doing utility work, like underground utility work in their neighborhood or whatever, where they're just cleaning out the sewage or whatever. And they said they felt like they were being terrorized the whole time they were there. And I said, did they got radios on their hip? Did they got whatever? Can you send me a picture or whatever? And so they did. And so I could see the antennas on their radios. So I knew at minimum it was most likely a 800 radio system. You got all these people walking around with 800 megahertz radio systems on their hip. You know, they're talking back and forth, they're directing traffic and all that kind of stuff. It did look just like the radios that I used in my career. They have their regular system going and they have line of sight. All of that is just right there going into his house with these powerful antennas that is just pulsing all over him. And he's just probably because of all the different things he's got going on in his house, you know, different shielding strategies and stuff like that. And he's become his house has become more of an antenna. And so we're trying to help him work through that type of stuff and let go of what I would say is his security blanket. But it's more like an electricity blanket, really, more than a security blanket. But then when something like that comes in their environment, why is it over amplified to them if they have all these things in place, right?
Right? If they have
He
all this
should,
shielding and protective material.
right? He shouldn't even be feeling what these guys on these little 800 radios are doing out in the street,
Mm,
but he is. He's feeling like he's being terrorized.
yeah.
You know? So that's just things we had to think about. It's like he's built a Faraday cage inside of his house, and again, what I'm trying to really put out there is if we can get your house adequately grounded with the right amount of impedance where your ground is the most conductive monster around, you want it to be able to only want to go that way, right? And not reflect, right?
Not get drawn back up and
Not,
circulate.
not get drawn back up to you. And that way, now you have a Faraday cage inside of a powered Faraday cage because your house literally could be a Faraday cage if you had the adequate ground, right? Because coupling energy is coming towards you anyway, and it would be going into the ground, but that's not what's happening. What's happening is because of that coupling and because you don't have a ground with low impedance, it's oversaturating your home with different noises, different harmonics. And then you're sitting here watching your favorite Hulu or Netflix or whatever. And then you're like, why is my heart racing? Why did it just skip a beat? Odd harmonics.
So is what you're saying that because all of this noise and all of this frequency and all of this energy is not being sunk into the ground, it's not being dissipated, now what you have is an interference that is being coupled into circuits. And what's happening is that because of the lack of grounding and dissipating this energy, the wavelength or this energy from another circuit or another system going in and making the wave into something that is different or weird or odd to the point that it's actually damaging our health beyond what this thing alone can or will.
Right. All these different noises, frequencies that are coupled to our house are causing these odd harmonics. So let's just say in that you have all these different waves and then they just butt and they rub and they're creating chaos, electrical chaos in your home. You can go and look these things up and look at what somebody who's showing you about music, and he can show you odd harmonics, and then he can show you like all these like that, and then I could show you what a cardiac rhythm looks like that will show you also internal odd harmonics because you're in a voltage crisis. And that's what your cardiac arrhythmias are. Your cardiac arrhythmias are a voltage crisis.
Hmm.
Again, your house is in a voltage crisis by itself because it's carrying all these different noises because of how it's an antenna under power with no ground.
So then what kind of effects are we looking at? If you talk about, for example, what is an ECG? Isn't that measuring the voltage or the electricity of the heart? So could you show us some of the effects then that may correlate these odd harmonics with the electricity of our heart and the effects it can have there?
Okay, first what I'm going to show you is what is a normal 12 lead ECG. This is what they call sinus rhythm, okay? Everything looks symmetrical. Nothing looks out of place. It looks like it's in harmony for the most part. And that's what we're trying to look for is harmony. There's no voltage crisis going on here. This power supply, the heart, is doing its job adequately. All right, so what we're seeing here is, again, at the bottom is a normal rhythm, and at the top is what you call atrial fibrillation. And why it's called fibrillation, just like ventricular fibrillation, is you got all these little quivers. That's what these things right here is. There's some type of quiver in your electrical system. You have an odd harmonic. You have a voltage crisis. You have a frequency crisis going on. And that's
Mm.
what's happening. And your house is kind of the same way. Your house is in one form of another in a voltage crisis, and it's spilling over onto you. And that's why a lot of times a lot of people will complain about, why is my heart skipping around? Why is my heart doing this? Why is my heart doing that? And it literally just sitting at home. And what I found just from talking to people, more people have less problems away from the home than they do at the home. And that's where I started doing my investigations, just talking to people, talking to people, talking to people. I got one lady who's a travel school teacher. She's the same exact way. She gets all these little rashes and stuff when she's going around traveling doing her school teaching thing, and when she comes home, boom, it gets worse, but gets better when she's out. And this very well could be one of those things where it's just a bad grounding and tons of electrical noises and lots of interference and radiation build up in her home. It literally could just be that. It could just be going around and changing a whole bunch of sockets to higher quality sockets that actually have beefier materials inside of it, and getting somebody out there to actually make you a better ground that can be maintained, because home ground should be able to be easily maintained. You should be able to perform maintenance on it
Mm.
to keep it conductive, to keep the impedance there that it needs.
This is something that once you put me on the right path there, on the right direction, and I actually started doing a little bit of research, this is something that I can't believe is not more obvious, because it's like well known that if you have something like a Faraday cage or any kind of shielding that you want to block frequencies or data transmission, you need to have it grounded. When they talk about grounding, they always talk about how energy wants to return to its source. And so if you don't have an adequate ground that is pulling that energy and sinking it or dissipating it into the earth, then it only makes sense that this will be bouncing back up. And then it makes entire sense that what you're talking about here of your shielding literally becoming an antenna, well, that's literally what is happening here. If the energy that you think is you're dissipating is actually just coming back up and staying and circulating in the house.
Yeah, here, case in point is like if you want to look at your standard, this is a standard earthing mat wire, a ground. If you can see that right there, that little whatever, that's not going to draw anything. There's literally going to be no infinity there. It won't, it's not going to attract it. It's not going to draw off, and it's never going to cover the surface area that you're trying to cover. It can't work that way. I mean, if you're looking at what most people build in their homes or with the canopies and all that stuff, if you look at that surface area that you're trying to ground, you're probably looking at what a wire about the size of my pinky, if not more, the ground.
That's a very large wire.
Yeah, nobody who's doing that. Then your EMF specialist will come in there. He'll sell you a very expensive canopy. So in the ACLS world, this is one of the most profound voltage emergencies. One or two things could happen with somebody in this presentation is that they're still alive and talking to you, or they're dead. They could have a pulse and have this arrhythmia, or no pulse and be in cardiac arrest. So this is odd harmonics at its best. Lots of people today have what you call sporadic PVCs, and it would be just one of these. Just say you had a normal rhythm, but you have one of these high amplitude, wide complex PVCs, premature ventricular contraction. So a lot of people are going to their cardiologists, and they feel these little flutters, and they're never going to understand that most likely the flutter assault is coming from them being a grounding mechanism all day long for their cell phone, a grounding mechanism for their tablet. They have all these unwanted energies coming onto their chest and their heart. Your heart is an electrical beauty that we don't understand, and a lot of people think they do. And then all these things interfere with your blood, beat up your blood, and that electricity in your blood, when you're pumping beat up blood through this beautiful heart the Father gave us, it's going to have interference. So when your voltage is on your blood is beat up, and you're sending beat up, dead-ish blood through this heart, that you're also putting dead-ish blood, dried up, microwave blood, dumping it back into it. But the heart's not putting voltage. The heart doesn't charge your blood. So there's something about us that a lot of people, we really truly don't understand on where this electricity in our body, our innate inherent biological electricity. But when you're sending blood, this blood that's stacked on top of itself, not charged appropriately, we're causing these electromagnetic disruptions with our heart alone. Then you got powers from your devices just hitting you in your chest all day long.
And how much
It's not
electrical inputs can an electrical organ resist?
right. So you have all these little pacemakers on your heart, tons of pacemakers.
Mhm.
Now you have what you call primary pacemakers. That's what they call the SA node. And that's what's end up happening, is that you have all this information flooding your heart, hitting your heart, inputs. Next thing you know, a random beat here and there, a random beat here and there. So what is happening is you're getting burns, you're singeing. It's almost like somebody who's having, they call an ablation. Usually ablation is a mechanism where somebody goes in and he actually physically purposefully burn away certain pacemakers that are supposedly not working correctly or properly. But what if you're getting an external ablation on a micro level daily, where you're getting your pacemakers, your inherent innate pacemakers, burned away little by little, piece by piece, because you carry around a modulating microwave box that is burning you from the inside out.
So with this interference and with this noise and the coupling effect, then these weird harmonics, do you think that they have a big impact on the toxicity or the damage that these frequencies cause us? Is this a much bigger problem now that we're facing, not just the regular waveform, but a disrupted, mangled thing?
What we have to think about, and a lot of people need to come to grips with if they haven't already, we have a piezoelectric infestation going on that's running parallel operations to our biological operations. That alone is causing interference. Their affinity for this electricity that we're surrounded by is pretty high. What that means is a lot of this stuff is going to come towards us anyway. And our lack of knowledge of what's going on is what is elevating and escalating these infestations exponentially. Even coming up, even a casual conversation with 2 or 3 people you know in your local Walmart or whatever, they all got all these devices all over them, the watches. And if you are an observationalist like me, what I like to hear is I'll post up around people, especially elderly people, and listen to them talk. And you can rest assured that one of them's going to say something. I just feel run down lately. Do you feel run down? Then the other one say, yeah, I feel run down. And the one old man, unfortunately, has, a lot of older men, they like these pockets right here, right? Where they keep their pens, their pencils, and their, whatever. And they're now their cell phone. And the little sweet old lady, she's got this smartwatch on. So that means her cell phone is close by, right? And if it isn't, that's even worse. That's even worse for the ladies who have these watches on. And I'll just leave my phone at the car.
And that watch is going to constantly try and make that connection.
It's going to amplify. It's going to increase the energy coming off of it because it wants to find its device, like who it's married to. These devices have more of commitment than people do. They don't want to give up on each other. On my Telegram chat today, it's just so sad in how people are trying to help you, but when they help you, they end up hurting you. So on my Telegram, one of the ladies just reported to us that she has a friend. I think she's in her 70s or whatever. She just got diagnosed with atrial fibrillation. So her grandson, being a good grandson, right? He goes out and gets her a smartwatch that has the ability to monitor these things, right? And so what is actually going to go on here? What is going to happen? Well, she's probably going to receive the watch because she's probably going to say, oh, that's a good gift. Not knowing, not understanding that it's going to contribute, most likely contribute to the atrial fibrillation and probably end up in her weakened state, probably put her into an acute breathing issue. Shortly after people get diagnosed with an arrhythmia of that nature, they have a lot of adaptation to undergo, to be able to get comfortable in their new body, because it's going to feel weird to them. This atrial fibrillation is going to feel weird to them all the time. They'll get anxiety out of the blue. They'll get short-winded out of the blue, and then you put a 2.4 gigahertz device on her wrist that's going to communicate to most likely a phone, and you're going to have this modulating technology with somebody who has a new pacemaker distortion going on. She already has inherent biological, interference in her heart. And then you're going to add more friction, more radiation, and more interference on her already unstable heart.
Would you talk a little bit about how you see this beyond just specifically the heart? Of course, it's quite clear that the heart would have, some of the biggest symptoms that you can actually look at and correlate there. But outside of the heart, what do you see these effects causing?
Constant brain fog, one. When your head is pressurized all the time with various levels of voltage crises, and that's the easiest way to put it, whether it's frequency, whether it's radiation or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's because you have this voltage in the air that's all around you, and it's pressurizing your brain, and it's causing people to do, like I said on the last podcast, somebody could literally have a micro infarct, which is brain damage, where something has happened inside the brain where it did not get oxygen. Tons of people, man, they can go get a CT, and what they can see is old injury. And it looks like you've had an insurmountable amount of TIAs, multiple mini strokes, and they didn't even know it. Because sometimes the window of symptomology is so narrow. Let's just say you start having some tongue twisting or whatever, but you don't hear it, you don't pay attention to it, nobody's around to hear it, to be like, whoa, what did you just say? Why'd you say it that way? Then you go to bed, right? And you wake up the next day and it's gone. So that happens a lot. But a new thing that they're seeing now is just these micro infarcts. They're so small, these little areas of damage that just build up over time. So like that right there, that's one spot on your brain. That's another spot right there, and that's another spot. And then eventually over time, these spots, damaged areas, keep building and building and building. And pretty soon this whole area would be damaged. And it's so incremental. And it starts off with the brain fog, and it starts off with you maybe can't hold something. You drop things here and there. Maybe it's a little bit of numbness and tingling in your fingers. Maybe you notice you don't feel things in your feet like you used to. This is all the burning and singeing away of our biology.
Hmm. And so does the body start by sacrificing the parts that it assesses as like least important so that you still maintain as much as possible the most important functions while the things that your body may deem as less important actually start just slowly deteriorating?
The body's going to do everything it can to protect the core first. It'll let go of a leg, an arm, like that. Just let it go. It will shunt off vessels to basically allow you to lose your own arm. That's what it will do. It'll sacrifice the arm to save the heart, the liver, the lungs. And that's always happening. Your body's always doing triage on you. Whether you know it or not is a whole different thing. And you definitely don't want your body to one day let go of something.
Are there any other effects that you would see in this exposure that we have?
Some of the other effects that you can see from this is more, I guess, what you would say is emotional in nature, hopelessness. Like, what do you do? I'm seeing a lot of that. And a lot of people I talk to, they feel hopeless. And I get it and I understand it.
It's interesting because there are a number of there's a lot of research actually talking about Wi-Fi frequencies actually resulting in anxiety or depression-like symptoms in mice.
Right. Right. And what did they do shortly after the kickoff of 2020? They locked all the mice in their cages, in their electrical nightmare cages. And then what picks up? Depression. So a lot of this depression was manufactured and not necessarily true depression. It was mechanized depression through electrical assaults that you can't see, taste, or touch. You can't point at it. And if you do point at it, you're a crazy person. You're insane.
So now, as we discuss and as we unpack all of these horrible effects that not just this technology, but how it interacts in our environment, in our antenna of a house, as we discuss how this technology is amplified and made worse and is damaging us and the effects it has on us, what can we do for our house to minimize this antenna that we have?
You have to reach out to an electrician. You have to reach out to them and you have to convince them that your ground most likely is not good. And talk to and ask them, have you ever heard of conductive concrete? That's what we got to try to do is we got to try to make our ground the conductive bully of our house. We want it to take it all. We want it to be the electrical thief. We want it to take it all. Talk to him about a ground that can be maintained, that you can go or he can come out and easily apply maintenance to, grease it up, oil it up, whatever, polish it up, all that type of stuff. Just like your sockets, you know, see how much it costs to have every couple years, every 2 years, somebody come around and go in there and polish up your grounds. Take the corrosion off your little ground wires, right, on your sockets. See if the sockets need to be replaced. You can literally pull one of those things off and you can look back there and it's burned up. It's you literally see that it was some point in time it took on a lot of heat and it's damaged, but it's still working exactly the way that you are accustomed for it to work. Get that ground with high conductive concrete. Conductive concrete is where you need to go these days to try to help overcome what your house has become. Your house has become an electromagnetic nightmare, especially because it is ground. That is one thing that people need to work on is how to get that established in a very appropriate and right way that's not so-called legal grounding or this is within code. The so-called code today just isn't cutting it. It just isn't cutting. And see if maybe they can go and up the ante a little bit on your ground wire back to your box. And so there's different mechanisms they can do. They can twine some wire in together or helix it up or whatever into your box or whatever. But See if they can get the highest gaugeable gosh dang wire that they can fit in that bad boy. All these little things help. And if you don't want to have this electrical nightmare going on in your house, these are just the things that we can do. And if we do our house right, you can literally turn your house into a charged Faraday cage. That all this coupling that's taking place, these frequencies or energies are coming into your house, and these noises coming out of your sockets. You know, you don't have to sit here and go and buy a billion filters. You just get the one filter you need, the ground. So if your house is a powered Faraday cage with an adequate, aggressive, low impedance ground, the affinity for this noise and frequency and this power dumping is going to go into that ground because it's going to have an affinity for it. It's not going to reflect back up into your home and cause more problems.
And I know you mentioned on the show, what about one of those meters or testers to test your ground in just your sockets, to test the specific ground wire that you have in a specific socket?
Yeah, that's like step one. This is what you can just go around and do yourself. You know, you don't have to have a license to go around and just check these little things. And it literally just plugs right into the wall, into your socket. And then it'll give you information, right? And obviously at the very bottom, you see what's correct. You'll have these two amber lights right here. They'll kick on. And everything else is not good. Anything else that's other than those two amber lights coming on simultaneously is not good. You could theoretically go around your house and do this and probably find at minimum one, but oftentimes what you're going to find out is you're going to find multiple sockets that are damaged because a lot of people, somebody emailed me the other day and said that their sockets were like, I think they said they were 50 years old or something like that. I was like, wow, wow. But that's what we can do. Just the basics, simplicity. It's just like when I was teaching paramedic students. Like we have a difficulty breathing patient, and they're in school learning how to be paramedics. I have somebody who can't breathe, and what is the first thing they want to do? They want let's hang a mag drip. Let's was it two? Is it 2 grams? Or is it 4 grams? How many grams of magnesium do we need to hang, Eric? I said, well, let's hang some oxygen on them first. Let's see if that helps. Basics. It's always the basics. Everybody wants to go for the shielding. Everybody wants to go for the new device. I got to get a device in my pocket that's going to help save me from this. Or I need to get the latest and greatest trinket around my neck. Or the latest and greatest device I can stick in the ground in my yard. But our house is a powerful antenna. And it's where you spend a lot of your days in this age that we live in. More people are in their house than they are anywhere else. So get your home squared away. Get your home right so it doesn't assault you.
I think that's an incredible finding, particularly when we talk about these aggressive frequencies, and it suddenly makes sense why some people are particularly so damaged by these things, because it's not only about, that 800 radio that you talked about in a forest, two radios communicating with each other. No, it's also about this house and all of these appliances and all of this electricity and that faulty ground that isn't actually a ground, amplifying all of this and working to make it even worse for you. And then on top of this amplification process that is damaging us, we feel the need to further then go and find solutions and look for something that can mitigate our problems. And most likely we will land on the very thing that can just make it even worse for us, because we don't understand how these systems work and what a true ground is.
100%. Again, the basics, basic nutrition, basic health. What is health? And obviously what we have noticed lately is that you have tons of whisperers out there whispering, influencing you to get this, to get that. Basics. That's what we have to focus on. is the basics.
Mhm.
You know, even though that our assault that we're dealing with is beyond basics, it's beyond our comprehension and beyond our understanding.
So then, if we continue on that thread, are there any biological remedies or solutions that you would recommend to help deal with some of the symptomology that this electromagnetic interference is causing?
So that's it's kind of one of those things where like that's why I talk to people. That's why I talk to every individual that wants something from me. So I give people time and we go over their environment because like even Tony has been screaming epigenetics for years. Epigenetics. That's what we got to focus on is your environment, especially the environment you own. That should be the easiest place to address. Now, again, I understand people live in condos and townhouses and apartment complexes. Sometimes things are a lot more difficult for you because obviously you're not going to be able to go knock on your neighbor's door. Hey, can you turn your Wi-Fi off at night? Not going to happen. Not going to happen. But the people who live in their own homes, we need to focus there. Focus there. Focus at your home. Get your home squared away. And then if your home is squared away and you have all these other issues, then we can see, hey, maybe you need to start addressing synthetic biological infestations. Like, do you got, vibrating in your legs? Do you got vibrating in your arms? Do you have this crawling sensation? I get it all. I get all these different presentations that people are going through. But again, some of them are the sensitivity to electricity and electromagnetic fields, but which are, again, interactions with these piezoelectric infestations. So you got to juggle. It's not easy. So, but you have like this scale. You have to learn how to balance what's going on around you. Get your house squared away. See how you feel. If you still have these other things going on, you may be a candidate to start utilizing these devices that we all build, and you can obviously build it yourself, and you should. I had two ladies call me just the other day. They had their bucket all done and it just wasn't working quite right, and they had it all done. They felt like the wind was out of itself, so they reached out to me, and it was just a matter of taking one wire and just going, and it worked beautifully. And then and then they're so happy, and so they can start addressing something that they know is going on because they can feel it. They see it. This particular lady could see all these red fibers coming out of her feet. And then that bucket just ripped them out of her. And of course, then she calls me a couple of days later. I think I overdid it. I said, I'm pretty sure you did. Because what ends up happening when people see these things come out of them, you can't stop. It's never enough, right? You want to get everything out of you.
Talk a little bit more about that because there are differing opinions on the frequency of using the anti-nano devices, how often, the duration. When you think about, releasing or making the unseen material seen, there has to be some kind of response to that is actually clearing this out of the body or pushing it out of the body or dealing with it in some way. So is it possible to overload or to create a part where you've disengaged this technology and now you're creating a toxic effect because you've done too much and now the body just can't keep up with the amount of stuff now it has to deal with.
Okay, so if I go right back to these same ladies, up in her, I think she said her upper left hip. I wasn't there, so we can just say fluid started coming out of her hip, up her like on her upper left thigh area. She was just seeping fluid. Most likely this biofilm that is a component to these materials. And when they let go of all that garbage too. And that biofilm or fluid was just coming out of her legs and just saturating her pants. And she's like, what in the world's going on? And it just kept doing it. And in that same area, she also felt like Fourth of July sparkler or whatever, where it's like fireworks stuff where you hold it in your hand, it's a little stick that sparkles and it's just carrying up a little storm. That's what she said it felt like her hip was like in a little electrical storm going on. I was like, yeah, I get that stuff all the time. Since the probably the last 3 or 4 months since I've been working on my house, trying to get it squared away a little here, a little there, these things have died down where I don't get that little bit of like feels like something's walking up the back of my ear or something's walking across my forehead, but it's all like electrical. It's what it feels like. And that's what she was feeling in her hip. So yeah, you can go too hard too fast. That's just the nature of who we are as people. You see a threat when you in your bucket or in your tub and you feel like I need to go harder, I need to go faster, I need to go longer. But if you look at your body as a empty canister, then you fill it up full of trash. Now you're a trash can. And so you don't want to become a trash can overnight. You don't want to fill your whole canister up full of debris.
Of
I mean,
revealed debris that the body's now dealing with.
right, revealing whether it's actually disengaged or not, active, deactivated, inactive. If it's now seen, the body's going to deal with it. And if you reveal too much at one time, you're going to have all kinds of problems.
And I believe Tony talked about this when he said that he stopped the devices and he continued seeing things come out as if he was using them regularly, as usual.
Well, that can happen too. That can happen too.
Thank you very much, Eric, for sharing your findings here. I think going forward, this is going to be something that really helps a lot of people change their situations in understanding what we're actually faced with, in understanding how electricity is actually functioning inside of us, and understanding why these frequencies are not just a frequency that is damaging us, but is part of a whole system that is made to amplify and make one small problem even worse, connecting with the metals and the carbons and the synthetic conductive materials that are inside of us, and how that relates to everything else that we're faced with and surrounded with. So thank you very much for sharing these findings and doing this research to begin with that may not be trendy, that may not get you lots of likes or applause, but still is incredibly important for all of us to understand and learn about. Thank you. All right. And if you'd like more information regarding some of the background, the foundation of what we've talked about grounding, about how electricity doesn't actually follow along or travel inside the wires, about me and Eric discussing and Eric sharing his findings about how this electricity is bouncing around, about the problems with grounding and more, then we'll leave some links in the description for the different shows that we've done on Tony's platform that will be very relevant, I believe, if you'd like more of a background about what we were talking about, the coupling effect, the carrier waves, all of that stuff. Any final comments, Eric?
Just don't go into hopelessness. That's the worst state that anybody could be in is hopelessness. Just look at this as right now you know what the issue is and just strategize. You don't have to knock it out of the park today. I know a lot of people are strapped with money. We all are. I have been without a career since June of 2022 now. I understand. So all the little incremental changes for the good will be for the good. And just because you don't feel it today, don't stop. Eventually, you'll get to where you need to be. So please don't fall into hopelessness. So many people literally are that are calling me, contacting me, and all that. And when you talk to them, they just feel so deflated. And I just keep my head up. It's it for what? Why am I gonna? Everything that I look at today is a challenge, and I'm just running my race. I'm going to endure. I'm not going to let this stuff overcome me. Will it eventually? I don't know. Don't care because my life doesn't mean nothing here for the most part for me. It's the kingdom, and that's where I am kingdom mindset all the time. And so don't fear this world. Don't fear the things that are in this world and the things that could come about on this world, right? The things that may manifest right in front of you one day. Only fear him who can destroy you and the soul. Don't fear anything that can destroy your body. Just fear the one.